In the winter of 1692, a small Puritan village in Massachusetts would become the setting for one of the darkest chapters in early American history. Salem Village, now known as Danvers, was a community built on faith, fear, and survival. Life was harsh. Disease, conflict with native tribes, and rigid religious discipline defined existence. To the Puritans, the devil was not an abstract concept. He was a constant presence, waiting to tempt the weak and destroy the godly. It all began in the household of Reverend Samuel Parris. His 9-year-old daughter Betty and 11-year-old niece Abigail Williams began to behave strangely. They screamed during prayers, convulsed, and claimed to see invisible forces tormenting them. The village physician, unable to find any physical explanation, concluded that the girls were under the influence of witchcraft. It was a diagnosis that would unleash chaos across Salem. When Reverend Parris pressed the children for names, they accused 3 women: Tituba, his enslaved servant from Barbados; Sarah Good, a destitute beggar; and Sarah Osborne, a woman already scorned for defying the rigid gender roles of Puritan life. All 3 were outsiders, vulnerable, poor, or different. In Salem, that was enough to mark them for suspicion. The villagers gathered in the meeting house on March 1, 1692, for the first public examination. The air was cold, heavy with fear and curiosity. One by one, the accused were brought before the magistrates, Jonathan Corwin and John Hathorne. The afflicted girls shrieked and fell to the floor whenever the women looked at them, as if invisible daggers struck their bodies. The audience gasped. To the Puritans, such fits were proof of Satan's power at work. Sarah Good denied the accusations. "I am no witch," she said, her voice trembling. Sarah Osborne, weak and ill, could barely speak. But Tituba's confession would change everything. Under pressure, she admitted that the devil had appeared to her in the form of a tall man and that she had signed his book. She spoke of black dogs, red cats, and yellow birds, of witches flying on poles, and of others who served the devil beside her. When the magistrates asked for names, Tituba said there were many. Her confession ignited panic. If there were more witches hiding among them, then no one was safe. The accusations spread like wildfire. In a matter of weeks, dozens were accused. Fear replaced reason. The villagers looked at one another with suspicion. Neighbors turned on neighbors, friends on friends. To understand how Salem reached this point, one must understand its foundation. The Puritans believed they were God's chosen people in a hostile wilderness. They had fled England to build a society purified of sin and corruption. Their world was governed by strict rules, where disobedience was not just social deviance, it was moral failure. The devil's work, they believed, could appear anywhere, in sickness, crop failure, or disobedient children. The events in Salem came after years of tension. The community was divided between 2 factions, those who supported Reverend Parris and those who opposed his harsh leadership. Economic disparity deepened the resentment. Some families prospered through trade and farming, others struggled to survive. The nearby frontier wars with native tribes fed a sense of insecurity and dread. Many of the afflicted children had witnessed violence and death firsthand. In their minds, the devil was not far away. He was among them. By late March, more people were arrested. Martha Corey, a respected church member, was accused after questioning the legitimacy of the trials. Even her good reputation could not save her. When she entered the courtroom, the girls fell into convulsions. The crowd interpreted this as undeniable proof. Soon after, Rebecca Nurse, an elderly woman known for her kindness, faced the same fate. Her family pleaded for mercy, but hysteria had already taken hold. The accusations expanded beyond Salem Village to neighboring towns: Andover, Topsfield, Ipswich. By May, over 70 people were imprisoned. The jails overflowed. Chains, straw, and the stench of despair filled the air. Some prisoners were shackled so tightly that their skin bled. Others awaited trial in total darkness. Governor Sir William Phipps, newly returned from England, established the Court of Oyer and Terminer to handle the cases. Its Chief Justice was William Stoughton, a man of strict Puritan conviction. The court accepted spectral evidence, the testimony that the spirit or specter of an accused person had harmed someone, even if their physical body was elsewhere. To modern eyes, it seems absurd. To the Puritans, it was the devil's logic made real. The first to face trial was Bridget Bishop, a widow known for her independence and sharp tongue. She was accused of bewitching several people and of owning poppets, small dolls thought to be used in witchcraft. Bishop denied everything, but the witnesses spoke of her red cloak, her tavern, and her supposed visits by night. The court sentenced her to death. On June 10, 1692, Bridget Bishop was hanged on Gallows Hill. She was the first to die. Her execution did not satisfy the judges. Instead, it confirmed their righteousness. If one witch had been executed, surely others remained. The machinery of accusation accelerated. Sarah Good, Rebecca Nurse, Susanna Martin, Elizabeth Howe, and Sarah Wilds were next. Some maintained their innocence to the end. Others, broken by imprisonment, confessed to crimes they never committed, hoping for mercy that never came. The trials became a ritual of collective fear. Each examination followed the same pattern: screams, fits, and claims of invisible assaults. Those who denied guilt were condemned. Those who confessed were spared execution, at least temporarily. It was a perfect trap. The only way to survive was to admit to witchcraft and to accuse others. Meanwhile, the afflicted girls, Betty Paris, Abigail Williams, Ann Putnam Jr., Mercy Lewis, Mary Walcott, and others, gained power. Their words determined life or death. They were treated as witnesses of divine truth, their suffering proof of invisible evil. Some historians later suggested that their behavior was the product of mass hysteria, repressed trauma, or even ergot poisoning from contaminated rye. But at the time, no such explanations existed. As summer deepened, the executions continued. On July 19th, 5 more women were hanged. On August 19th, 5 others followed, including George Burroughs, a former minister of Salem Village. Burroughs shocked the crowd by reciting the Lord's Prayer flawlessly at the gallows, something witches were believed incapable of doing. Many spectators wept, realizing that an innocent man might be dying before them. Yet the judges remained unmoved. Burroughs was executed, his body buried in a shallow grave near the hill. Fear silenced dissent. To question the trials was to risk being accused yourself. Even Giles Corey, an 81-year-old farmer, refused to plead. The court ordered him pressed to death under heavy stones, a punishment meant to force confession. For 2 days, Corey endured the torture, his only words, "More weight." His defiance became a symbol of quiet resistance in a time of madness. By September, over 150 people had been accused and 19 had been executed. The village lived in a state of collective delirium. The devil seemed to have consumed Salem entirely, but beneath the surface, doubt began to grow. Clergymen like Increase Mather and his son Cotton Mather, both influential ministers, started to question the use of spectral evidence. Increase Mather wrote, "It were better that 10 suspected witches should escape than that one innocent person should be condemned." His words reached Boston, where the governor himself began to reconsider. As autumn approached, the hysteria that had once burned so fiercely began to fade. Families mourned the dead. Crops rotted in the fields. The community was exhausted. Yet the machinery of accusation still turned, threatening to destroy what remained of Salem's soul. The trials, built on fear and faith, were not yet over. The question that remained was not who was guilty, but how a society so devoted to God had become the instrument of its own destruction. By the autumn of 1692, the fires of hysteria in Salem began to dim, but only slightly. The executions had not driven away evil. Instead, they had left behind silence, grief, and unease. Gallows Hill, where 19 had been hanged, loomed over the village like a scar. Families whispered about ghosts and the restless souls of the condemned. Yet the court of Oyer and Terminer pressed on, convinced that its mission was righteous. In September, the trials reached their most brutal phase. Martha Corey, the wife of Giles Corey, was hanged. Her husband, who had refused to enter a plea, was still being tortured in the nearby field. The sheriff placed one heavy stone after another on his chest. Witnesses heard Giles's final words. More weight, before his ribs cracked and he suffocated beneath the crushing load. His death shocked even those who had once believed in the trials. Despite this, the machinery of accusation did not stop. On September 22nd, 8 more people were hanged, including Mary Easty, sister of Rebecca Nurse. Before her death, Mary wrote a letter pleading for mercy, not for herself, but for others yet to be tried. "It is not too late," she wrote, "to put an end to these proceedings before more innocent blood is shed." Her letter reached Boston. It would become one of the documents that changed everything. The trials had created an ungovernable climate of fear. Children refused to sleep. Fields went untended. Livestock starved. The jails overflowed, and the colony's leaders grew uneasy. The governor, Sir William Phipps, had initially supported the court, but reports of absurd accusations began to reach his ears. Children, ministers, even the governor's own wife were being named as witches. The turning point came when respected citizens and clergymen began to question the legitimacy of the evidence. Increase Mather, president of Harvard College, delivered a sermon that echoed through the colony. It were better that 10 suspected witches should escape than that one innocent person should be condemned. His son, Cotton Mather, who had once defended the trials, began to retreat from his earlier stance. On October 29, 1692, Governor Phipps dissolved the court of Oyer and Terminer. The remaining accused were to be tried under new procedures without spectral evidence. It marked the beginning of the end. When the new court, the Superior Court of Judicature, convened in January 1693, the difference was clear. Without the hysterical testimonies of the afflicted girls, most cases collapsed. The judges began to acquit the accused. Even when a few confessions persisted, public opinion had turned. The people of Salem were no longer willing to believe every claim of witchcraft. By May 1693, Governor Phipps ordered the release of all remaining prisoners. The witch trials were over. But for the survivors, the nightmare continued. Those who had confessed were branded for life. The families of the executed faced ruin. Property had been seized, debts unpaid, and reputations destroyed. The village itself seemed cursed, not by witches, but by guilt. In the months that followed, a slow reckoning began. Ministers urged repentance. Some jurors signed letters of apology, admitting that they had been misled by fear. One of the afflicted girls, Ann Putnam, Jr., delivered a public confession in 1706, expressing sorrow for her role in the deaths. She said she had been deluded by Satan, her words a mirror of the hysteria that had once consumed her. The Reverend Samuel Parris, whose household had sparked the events, became a symbol of division. His congregation split. Many blamed him for feeding the hysteria. In 1697, the church forced him to resign. He left Salem in disgrace, dying years later in obscurity. As time passed, the colony tried to erase its shame. The executions were quietly forgotten, the gallows dismantled, the graves left unmarked. Yet the memory of Salem refused to disappear. The tragedy had revealed something terrifying about the human condition, that fear and faith, when mixed, could destroy reason itself. In 1711, the Massachusetts government passed a bill reversing the convictions and granting compensation to the families of the condemned. But no amount of money could erase the past. The descendants of those executed carried the stain of witchcraft for generations. Centuries later, historians would debate what truly happened in Salem. Some pointed to social tensions, the rivalry between farming families and merchants, the disputes over land and church authority. Others believed the afflicted girls suffered from psychological trauma or illness. A few even proposed natural explanations, such as ergot poisoning, a hallucinogenic fungus found in rye bread. But beyond science or sociology, the story of Salem remained a warning about collective fear and moral certainty. The trials had not begun with evil magic, but with ordinary human suspicion. A whisper became an accusation became a conviction, and conviction became execution. At every step, the people of Salem believed they were defending their faith. In truth, they were destroying it. The tragedy of Salem was that it did not require monsters. The devil never appeared. There were no curses, no spells, no true witches, only human beings, terrified of their own shadows. Over time, Salem became a symbol of injustice. Writers, philosophers, and jurists invoked it whenever governments abused power or societies turned against their own. The name Salem became shorthand for the danger of mass hysteria and moral panic. In the centuries that followed, America faced new witch hunts, political, cultural, ideological. From the Red Scare to modern conspiracies, the same pattern repeated: fear, accusation, punishment. Salem's lesson remained unfinished. Today, visitors to Massachusetts can walk the old paths where the accused once lived, stand on the hill where they died, and read their names carved in stone. The memorial at Salem bears 19 granite slabs, each engraved with a name, a date, and the manner of death. There are no symbols, no explanations, only silence. The names speak for themselves: Bridget Bishop, Sarah Good, Rebecca Nurse, Susanna Martin, Elizabeth Howe, Sarah Wilds, George Burroughs, Martha Carrier, John Willard, George Jacobs, Senior Mary Easty, Alice Parker, Ann Pooteater, Wilmot Redd, Margaret Scott, Samuel Wardwell, Martha Corey, Mary Parker, and Giles Corey, pressed to death. Each name marks a life taken by fear. Each stone is a testament to the danger of faith without doubt, justice without mercy, and conviction without truth. The Salem witch trials ended more than 3 centuries ago, yet their echo remains. It whispers a single warning across time. When fear becomes faith and reason yields to belief, even the most devout can become the instruments of darkness.